Yes, yeah.
I love Cora.
Well, again, I want to thank all of y'all for being here. I will start with an update on Tennie. I was telling Miranda and I think Sally, I got to go to Denver Saturday morning and help Christy get her home Sunday. But she is back. She still wasn't quite feeling up to getting prepared to do Tennie Talk today. So again, y'all are blessed with me. And again, I've said my little prayer and hope that whatever I have to share, y'all find useful. When they asked me to do this yesterday afternoon, because Tennie decided she just wasn't up to it, I sat there and debated on what I felt comfortable in talking about, since I'm not of the program. And I talked to Christy about it, and what we came up with is roots and wings. Now, I know I'm going to vacillate today back and forth between kind of parenting, if you will. I know many of you no longer have children at home, but a lot of you have grandkids. I know, like Deb does. And also, the reason I picked this topic was we parent when we have our sponsees come to us. We parent our own self, if you will, if you believe in taking care of that inner child that might have suffered abuses or abandonments or whatever as children. So that's kind of why I picked this. So if you find me vacillating back and forth, please show some grace, if you will. But I want to start with a quote by Johann Wolfgang van Gogh. And it states, "There are two lasting bequests we can hope to give our children. One of these is roots, the other is wings." And I chose that not just about giving it to our children, but also giving it to ourselves as we grow ourselves up, as some of us have had to do, or as we work with those newbies that come into our lives through the 12 steps, and we work with them as our sponsees. If you really think about it, mentoring or sponsoring someone newly into the program, it is like reparenting them. And that's a lot of what I believe we do here at Shades. So when I was talking about roots and wings, what are the things, and I called up a few of y'all and asked, what were some of the gifts or the lessons that you enjoy in recovery that you would pass on? You know, what are the things that have grounded and rooted you? So I'm going to kind of talk from that perspective. One of the lessons that someone right off the top of their head was, to have grace, to show grace. Grace is something we talk about. In my terminology, it's cut some slack. Years and years ago, we learned when we would pick up Spencer from school, we needed to give him a time to kind of chill. I don't know about y'all, but when I get home from work, give me some time before you start the 20 questions, the Spanish Inquisition. You get home and the 20 questions start, and in 5 minutes, you're irritated and angry. We do that too with our children, with our spouses, with ourselves, with our sponsees. Give a little bit of break there. Give them time to kind of make that transition, cut them some slack. Also under that grace is listen. Listen with a heartful ear. How many times in your sponsoring or in your grandparenting or in your parenting the person starts telling a story, or they start telling their experience. And the first thing we do is, oh, yeah, I remember when that happened to me, and we're off, and we have done what with their story? We've discounted it. Or, oh, you sound just like whatever. It's their story. I'm gonna be honest. I am 65 years old. My son is 20 years old. He starts to tell me something. I don't know what it's like to be 20 anymore. I didn't know what it was like to be 5 or 6 or 8 or 10. Some of us have been in this program for years. It's not new to us anymore. And since it's not new to us, we assume we know what it's like to be in that situation. So in working with our clients and with our sponsees and with our children and grandchildren, I pick on grandchildren, Deb, because I keep seeing you there. God, what a kid Gray is. But hear their story. Hear from their perspective. I will almost guarantee you will learn some snippet of wisdom that comes out of their telling the story. Listen with a heartful ear and see what happens. Someone, said in their recovery, the thing I learned to do was, and I think we probably gave them the hula hoop while they were here, but it was, I couldn't comment if it didn't involve me. I had to listen. And when I began to listen, I began to learn. We need to show the same grace, if you will. The other one that someone said was, I had to have a willingness to let go of control. How many of us have had issues with letting go of the control? And a lot of times in the control of things is when we begin to get tired, run ourselves ragged, when we would just let go. We cannot control our sponsees. We cannot control our children. We cannot control our spouses. We cannot control anybody. Now, we can be there to listen, but if we will let go, and we talked a little bit about this last week, and let our loved ones and our children's and our sponsees be who they were created to be. I don't know how many people we have come through here, and part of their substance use or their eating disorder or what is trying to please someone else. Invariably, it was trying to please our parents or trying to be something we aren't created to be. If we can learn acceptance, and that's what we get when we go into the 12 steps and we go into the halls of the 12 steps. That's the other thing. When I talk to y'all, you say in many different ways is, I feel so comfortable walking into the halls of the 12 steps and being with like kind. Why then do we, if that's a lesson that has been taught to us in our recovery, we do not give the same grace, the same respect to those around us that we love? Let them be who they are and quit comparing them. How many times, and I pick on children because you all know that's my passion, of kids, young adults, but they will do something. And rather than just giving them credit for it or just appreciating that as part of their personality, we say, oh, you're just like your grandfather, or you're just like your brother, or you're just like someone, aunt, whomever. Instead of just letting them own it as part of who they are. That's part of the roots. We've got to allow those that we work with and those that we love the root of who they are, not in comparison to somebody else, but who they are. Now, they may remind us of grandfather or aunt or uncle. They may remind us, but that's not who they are. They are their own unique being. The other thing someone said to me was, it's that level of expectation, Cam. I have learned in my recovery, and Tennie talks about this on some of hers, your level of expectation. The other thing, a lot of kids and a lot of clients, and some of you weren't kids when you came to meet us, but we're still trying to live up to those expectations of others. Yes, we want our loved ones and we want our sponsees and things to succeed. But the other thing we want is for them to be able to set their own goals and set their own expectations. We can't set it for them. You know, Tennie has talked about Spencer's trajectory in life changing due to him getting medically retired from playing football. And I will be the first to admit, I think I probably had the hardest time of anybody in dealing and accepting that, because I knew he was good. But that is, and I think the other thing is, it was something he was proud of. But to his credit, and I think to his roots, he pivoted. Okay, I can't do this anymore, but it doesn't have to define who I am. He's made the best of it. He's been given the wings to make those decisions. We need to show that same honor and respect to our sponsees, our spouses, because that is a lesson of recovery, is to set your own expectation and know it's not about perfection. One of Tennie's favorites that I've learned working here. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. So why do we not honor those around us for their progress, and we criticize them when it doesn't meet perfectionism? It is about progress. And teach them to measure their progress. That's the motivator, is I did a little bit better today. I made my meeting today. I did what you asked me to do, sponsor. I did those things. Honor the progress. And pretty soon you'll be celebrating the goal being achieved, or the expectation. Because for many of us, that perfectionism is what's going to lead to our downfall, if you will, or it's going to lead to our relapse. I see Cora shaking her head. It's about progress. Now, we as parents, let's talk about as parents. We always want the best for our children. Always. And we want to rush in and save them. We want to rush in sometimes with our sponsees and save them and tell them what they're doing wrong. But if you really think about it, by doing that, in the long run, we're creating more harm than we are by letting them deal with the natural aftermath of whatever decision they make. You know, there's a song, and I'm gonna read some of it here at the end, about the mama sees her baby, you know, walking, learning to walk, and you know he's gonna fall, and she wants to rush and save him, but something in her heart says, no, let him fall, because he's got to learn to pick himself up. That's what we have to do with those that we work with. The other thing that came up was being able to, A, acknowledge that you have feelings, and B, to express those feelings. When we work with young adults, clients, our children, our family members, many times we do not allow them to have their feelings. You shouldn't feel that way. Well, why are you so angry? Get over it and move on. And what do we teach? Don't come talk to me about how you feel, because I'm going to tell you to move on down the road. Then 2 months later, we're like, why aren't you talking to me? You've got to create that space. And that is something y'all tell me about working the steps and working with your sponsors, that you have that safe place. Create that vessel for those you love. Allow them to have your feelings. They don't have to be your feelings, but allow them the right to their feelings. How many times, Deb, does Gray come home and maybe have a feeling about something? And there is that part of you that might say, grandson, I don't get why that's upsetting you so much. But that's his reality that day. And show him that grace so he knows you are that safe vessel. That's creating the root, but that's also teaching him to have the wings to fly and a reason to come home sometimes. And I know that's one thing I respect about Taylor and their relationship. I love the stories I hear. But allow someone to have their feelings, whether you understand them or not. Give them that grace. And a big one that we deal with our social media and things is not to compare. One of y'all said, the biggest lesson I've learned in recovery is not to compare my recovery to somebody else's, not to compare my progress to somebody else. And to me, that bleeds over of not comparing our relationships to somebody else, not comparing, when our kids come home, and I just can't get away from the kids because it's such a missing element. They are taught so early when they go to school. Compare, compare, compare. Well, I'm bigger than somebody else, or I'm shyer, or I don't fit in, or I don't that. And we try to tell them, oh, honey, it's okay. This too will pass. We're placating. We are placating. We have got to sit on their level and hear their feelings and let them try to figure out how to make it better. I talked to a gentleman this morning, 40-year-old VA, recently discharged, having some issues. And he made a statement that kind of just resonated with me this morning. That no matter how hard I run, Cam, my past is there because of the beliefs that I wasn't good enough were instilled. Somehow based, and I pick on Gray because I know the stories, Deb, but and Corey, with your son, I don't know lots. I kind of sit on the fringes of that, as you know. But they've got to believe they're good enough. And how we teach them that was one of my prayers every day. But it's also about accepting them for where they are and who they are, so they know they are good enough. It's the same thing when we work with our sponsees and our clients and our loved ones. It's just accept them. Accept them. Why in the LGBT community addiction is 20-25 times higher than it is in the normal? It's that level of acceptance, a level of acceptance by loved ones and level of acceptance by self. Learn to accept someone from where they are, not based on your necessarily belief or judgments. Because if they know you accept them, in time, you will be able to help them. And who knows, you might learn something from them. But that's another lesson of recovery, is acceptance. Now, I'm not saying you accept all behaviors. No. And that goes back to last week, of separating the person from their behavior. I'm talking about acceptance of that core person, of who God intended them. I believe, I'll get on my Bleacher Balcom bandwagon here. Each individual is birthed into this world with a personality all to themselves. Our job is to nurture that personality to be the best they can be. It is the same thing when someone first walks into the halls and new into recovery. They are being rebirthed, if you will, into recovery and back to finding who they were created to be without the use of a substance. To walk through the feelings, to engage in the feelings, and to go forward. We, as their sponsor, their loved one, or whoever, we have to create the vessel that they can be who they are. And they can take those steps. And like that mother watching the baby begin to walk, not run and just grab them. They've got to have the natural consequences. Now we can advise them and then let it go, because we can't control anybody. We can't. It's just one of God's laws. And the more we control or try to, what do? The more they dig their heels in, and I ain't doing it. Because you might be right, but then I'm going to have to admit you were right, and I don't want to do that, especially with parents. The other thing, and I had never thought about this, that someone shared with me was, I learned not to shoot from the hip. And I kind of went, what do you mean? I learned not to react immediately. To pause. Because when I react immediately, usually chaos ensues. If I can hit that pause button and either listen, hear what the person really has to say, accept them for where they're at, then the conversation has a whole different tone to it. So learn to hit the pause button and not shoot from the hip. God knows that is one of my biggest challenges in life. I shoot from the hip. And I react sometimes in immediacy. And when I do that, it usually comes out in anger, which doesn't do anybody any good. Hit the pause button. We don't want someone to and that's the thing about confrontation around here. What do we teach? You confront. The person has to wait 24 hours before they can respond. They learn to hit the pause, to be able to look at the situation from their perspective and hopefully consider the other person's perception, then respond, and hopefully have a conversation about it or mediation. Or if there's nothing to discuss, let it go. Be done with it and don't bring it back up. How many times do our kids do something and we have our discussion, they're grounded, whatever it is, but then a week, a year later, what do? We bring it back up. And they're like, dadgummit, I thought it was dead and gone. Now, if they bring it back up, that's their business. But let it go. Let it go. Brene Brown had a quote that I found also. In order to listen and empathize. In order to empathize with someone's experience, you must be willing to believe them as they see it. Through, in my version, through their lenses, not through mine. And not how you imagine their experience to be. When we deal with other people who have gained trust in us, or we're parenting, trying to raise our children, it can't be, well, when I was 15 and going out for the team, this is what I experienced. Yeah, you need to tell the stories, but when they're coming about their feelings and their struggles, you have got to hear it from their perspective. When you have that newbie that's new into the program and you're sponsoring them and they come to you, you've got to hear it from their experience. And then you can tell a story later. That's the other thing. People love stories because they know then they can overcome issues. We all have them. We all have them. We all sit around the Thanksgiving table at, and the family I've married into, it's the same stories. I mean, 25 years later, I feel like I lived them. I've heard them so much. But those are what gives us roots, are the stories. That's what glues us together. And we know when we come home, we're going to hear the stories. That's what gives us stability. So tell the stories. Even, I know Tennie gets on here and she'll tell you, well, I know I've told this story before, but it's a story with meaning. And enough times we hear those stories of achievement and working through and conquering a fear or whatever it is, the more we can transpose it to what we're going through. So tell the stories. Deb, tell Gray the stories. I know you have a ton of them, how you and your husband persevered in raising your two daughters. They need to hear that. They need to know it wasn't a cakewalk. You had struggles. They're going to have struggles in their lives. People new to recovery, it's not now all of a sudden just going to be a golden walk through the park. There are still struggles, but it's how you respond to those struggles. And there's nothing wrong to say, I tried this and it didn't work. I tried this with our two kids when Taylor and her sister were having an issue. It didn't work. So we tried something else that did work. That's how we teach them. If one thing doesn't work, pivot, try something else. I'm going to close with this song that was shared with me. I'm not gonna read the whole song. I'm going to read the last part of it. If you don't know this song, it's Roots and Wings. And if you're a parent or a grandparent, listen to it sometime. And I'm gonna read it first with love, but it also relates to recovery. Some say love's a circle. Some say love's a light. Some say love's a river, but I don't know who's right. This I know for certain, and this I know for truth. The secret to forever for me and you is roots and wings. To my ship you are the lighthouse on the shore, and I'm a kite on your string. Your love is my anchor in the storm. And a part of me stays grounded so the rest of me can fly, only 'cause you are my roots and wings. I'm lucky that you are my roots and wings. If you go back and plug in, some say recovery's a circle. Some say recovery's a light. Some say recovery's a river, but I don't know who's right. This I know for certain, and this I know for truth. The secret to recovery forever for me is roots and wings. To my ship of recovery, you are the lighthouse on the shore, and I am but a string, and your acceptance is my anchor in the storm. And a part of me stays grounded so the rest of me can fly, only 'cause my recovery is my root so that I may fly. As sponsors, you are many times that root. As parents, as grandparents, we are that root. But the only way they are a string and allow them to fly is they have to know they are loved and they are accepted no matter what. And that goes back to last week, that unconditional love. We don't have to agree with the behavior, and we need to separate many times the behavior from the individual. And when we do that, we can continue to give that love or that root for them to come home to. I hope that all made sense with the grace of God. So does anybody have any comments on those pearls of wisdom? Tennie's probably listening to this and she's like, man, I do need to get better and get back on this sucker. So anybody have any? Cora?
Well, you speak with the wisdom of being a mom, because I could identify with everything that you said. And you do know a little bit about my situation with my son. And I believe my relationship with him right now is as strong as it is because of my changing and my recovery and my work, you know, that I've learned to deal with him differently. Like you said, you try something, it doesn't work, you try something else. But a sponsor told me years ago, you can either start with acceptance or end with acceptance, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to accept.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And for me, the pause is critical. I'm a knee jerk too. You know, I just want a knee jerk. I want to resolve it. But I find if I sit with it, pause, pray about it, ask God for direction, boy, oh boy, every single time the answer comes very clearly. So I'm so happy I joined today, Cam, and I really got a lot out of your pearls of wisdom. My only question is, who sings Roots and Wings? Who's the?
Oh, heck, I don't know. Christy sent me that. Let me look.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Because I like to listen to the song, and I didn't know who was the artist.
You know, she's my backup when I get to do these things.
Well, that's okay. You could always send it out to us and let us know.
I'll text her real quick while we're talking. I can multitask.
Well, again, thank you, Cam. And I got a lot out of the talk. If nothing else, a reminder that these are things that we have to focus on. So thank you. I'm grateful for you, Cam. Thanks.
Thank you, Cora. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Megan, you have your hand up.
Yes, I think it's Bette Midler, if I'm thinking of the right song.
It might be. This one's the country version because he has this good-looking cowboy next to it that but I'll find out here. Thank you. You would know.
Not
I mean, you are in, yeah.
But I think several people have covered it too. I think it may have been. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's all.
Thanks. TJ.
Thanks.
I know that this is stating the obvious, but Shades of Hope has become my roots. It really is the grounding. It's like I personally feel about the Bible. I know what's true. I know what is real. And that's what Shades of Hope is to me, the roots. And only in the last year and a half, I've even started to imagine that I might have wings. I grew up grounded, and I don't mean grounded in a good way. I mean grounded as if you can't fly. So to all of everyone involved in Shades, everyone who's been through it, everyone who will be through it, everyone who counsels, everyone who cooks, everyone who is involved, you are my roots, and I thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll speak. It's Sally.
Yes, ma'am.
TJ, you definitely hit it on the button about Shades of Hope being the roots, because I feel the exact same way of roots. And I know I do Kim always is asking, can I take on, a sponsee who's still at Shades, some of the ones that are, a little of the younger ones. And I feel like sometimes I don't feel like I'm a teacher. I feel like I'm a big sister and saying, oh, you need to work on it this way. But I'm always will say, if I don't know something and I'm not sure about it, I always either call you or Kim or whoever. I always revert to Shades to get my answers so that I'm correct. But so for me, Shades of Hope is my roots. I do have wings for other things. I have now I'm now involved with the big sister, little sister program thing. I'm tomorrow I meet my first little sister, so I'm excited in that point. So, but I would not be at this point and at this stage of my life if it had not been for going to Shades and start to, as I said the first time I went, is that, yeah, I opened the can of worms and I barely scratched the surface of the can. And there's still worms in that can, just, they're always going to be. And so.
All about growth.
Yes, that's all I had to say. So,
Thank you, Sally. Miss Deb. You there?
Thanks, Cam. Yeah, I am. Thanks for everything that you shared. I'm a real big one about the power of pause, because what I've learned, it gives me the ability to respond rather than react. If I don't pause, I react. And there's no thought behind a reaction. There's just a lot of mouth. And if I pause, then I can think it through. And I prefer to respond rather than react, because responses don't require amends. Reactions sometimes do.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. The other thing I think could be added to this list is gratitudes, because I try to do that with my children and my grandsons. Just let them acknowledge that no matter what's going on, there's so much to be grateful for. And I think that helps to give them roots. And then one last real quick story. You talked about Gray earlier. He's 8 years old. He's in 3rd grade. Came home yesterday and he had a math worksheet and he filled out all the things and he showed it to his mom. And Taylor said, Gray, one of those on the bottom row is incorrect. And he said, thank you. I am not in the mood for feedback right now. And she said, honestly, I get you. Stick it in your backpack. So he was given the words. He knew what to say. She did not have him fix it. She heard what he had to say and it went back in the backpack. And he's going to get one wrong on his worksheet and that's fine.
That's great.
And
It is. You
is.
You teach them things of that nature. You better be prepared, because it's going to parrot back to you. I know. I forget what it was, but Spencer said no to us about something that I was just like, well, you can say no to anybody else, but you can't say no to me. I mean, this was a while back about something, and we just kind of went, well, we're the one that taught him that he could set a boundary and say no. Okay, you have to deal with it. Yeah, that's funny.
It is.
I'm not in the mood for feedback.
I'm not in the mood for feedback. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Cam.
Thank you, Deb. Jody, do you have something you want to say, or are you just waving at me, girlfriend? I guess you're just waving. Okay.
No, I have something to say.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, I had to unmute.
All right.
Thanks for talking, Cam. I love this. I love you speaking. I loved you last week as well. And if you could do it again, I would appreciate it, because you speak very well.
Thank you.
I like the part where you're talking about not bringing up the past with your kids or yourself and stuff like that. But what I'm trying to live by is the what I learned at Shades, and what I'm trying to incorporate in my life on a daily basis is the 10-step program, the 10-step. And what I try to do is try to keep my mind on the part of the 10-step where the forgiveness comes in. You know, if an event takes place, even to myself or to another person, or another person does something to me and they make amends, you know, I can choose to forgive and I can choose not to forgive. But if I choose to forgive, then I need to forget about it. If they make amends, and that I need to forget about it. I can't live in the past. And if I choose to live in the past, then I relive that experience over and over again, only with a different person. So the same situation can happen, but I still have the same reaction because I didn't let go of the past. And so what I need to do is with myself as well. Forgive myself if I make amends. Believe that I am genuinely making amends to you or to myself, and a person is genuinely making amends to me. And if I forgive them, it has to be genuine. I have to believe that I forgive them. So I try to live my life through forgiveness, you know, and believe that I do forgive. Because if I live in the past, I kind of block the blessings that come to me. And I live, you know, I'm sentencing myself to death because living in the past is basically the pain part of it. It creates nothing but chaos. It festers into a big sore. You get ulcers, and basically you die from it. You know, so I have to, and I have to consider the consequences. You know, am I going to? I have to consider if I keep this person in my life, and I determined to make amends with them and keep them in my life. I have to determine whether or not there's repairing process in this relationship. Can I repair it? You know, am I willing to take the consequences of this person in my life? And if I do, I repair it. If not, then I take their amends and I get them out of my relationship. I get them out of my circle because I have to determine whether or not they are good for my recovery. But I still forgive them. I don't harbor any hatred over them. I don't hang on to that in my personal life or in my heart.
And that's the
I
key.
go of that.
Forgiveness isn't necessarily that you forget. You know,
Right.
last week I made that reference to the lady that was paralyzed from the neck down, and the person that shot her in one of those mass shootings was coming up for parole, and they'd asked her, "What are your thoughts?" And she said, "I have forgiven him years ago. However, I have not forgotten. And he still needs to suffer the consequence of his actions." Forgiveness isn't necessarily forgiving, but what you're saying, I think this is what you're saying. Forgiveness means, okay, I have forgiven you, but if it continues to happen, I don't need you if it's going to affect my life negatively. And you're right, you've got to guard your circle, your recovery, like you would protect a child. Like we as mothers, you know, you want to see a lioness come out, attack our child. But that's what your recovery is to you. And you're right. You have to make the decision. Okay, I forgive you, so you don't harbor the resentments. It's for you. But if they are detrimental, or they keep bringing up the past and suck you back into it, yeah, I don't need you in my life anymore. That is your right, your choice.
And I believe that if you continue to keep this person in your life, you're making a conscious decision. You know, you're not making an emotional decision. You're making a conscious decision to deal with the consequences. You can't complain to them about you did this, you did that. You have to just deal with it because you put yourself in this situation because of your decision. So I just feel you need to think before you make a decision.
One lesson my mother taught me in raising a child, and I learned this when I taught at the home and school. we as parents really, once they hit age 10, 11, and 12, if you have not taught them discernment of friends, you're screwed. Because when they hit that, it's going to be about the opinions and the acceptance of who they run with. That is such a determining factor. And we as parents absolutely have the right. Somehow you want them to be their decision. And when they follow, well, so-and-so was doing it, so I did it. And where did it get you? If it's a negative consequence, are you going to continue to do what they do? Perhaps you need to change something. But I'm going to promise you, you tell them they can't see somebody, they're going to see them. It's going to happen. They're going to exert their independence. But it's the same thing in our recovery. Your circle is who is really supporting your recovery and who is not. And I don't care, you don't have to have 20 people out there. 2 or 3 of real support, not enablers. Big key difference. Many times in our times of struggle will make the difference on whether we move forward in our recovery or we relapse back into our disease way of thinking, which then takes us back to our disease. So you're absolutely right, Jody, absolutely. Anybody else? Well, again, thank you. Keep Tennie in your prayers, keep all of us in your prayers, and with the grace of God, she'll be back next Wednesday. And if not, you'll probably get me again. Lucky you. No, thank you for your attention. I appreciate y'all being here. Be blessed. Have a good week. Pray for those friends and people in Florida as they face Mother Nature. We just think we're in control. I'm sure they're thinking again. But yeah, do what's best for you and your recovery, and the rest will come. God bless. Love y'all.
Thank you, Pam.
Christy texted me back. The gentleman, the country singer, not that we listen to country music or anything, that did that song is Doug Supernaw. S-U-P as in Paul, E-R-N-A-W. So thanks again. God bless. Love y'all.
Thank you.
TJ.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.